Welcome to our channel Stoicism Tell Me. In today's video, we're diving into a powerful topic inspired by Stoic philosophy, 10 things you should quietly eliminate from your life. The Stoics believed in finding peace by letting go of what doesn't serve us, whether that's negative habits, unhelpful thoughts, or toxic relationships. In this video, we'll explore practical ways to declutter your mind and life, guided by Stoic principles that have stood the test of time. By removing these things, you'll create more space for what truly matters, helping you lead a calmer, more intentional life. So, if you're ready to make small, quiet changes with big impacts, let's get started. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more content on Stoicism and personal growth. 1. Comparing yourself to others. Are you on your own path? Are you on your own path? Lucius had a habit that he struggled with even if he didn't always acknowledge it. He constantly compared himself to others, whether it was a colleague's career progress, a friend's relationship, or even a neighbor's new car. There was always something that made him feel like he wasn't enough. Sound familiar? One afternoon, Lucius came across a Stoic idea that struck him deeply. A person's worth isn't measured by others' achievements, but by how they align with their own values. This made him pause. Could it be that his constant comparisons were distracting him from the life he was meant to live in? Stoicism comparison is seen as an enemy to inner peace. The philosopher Epictetus advised, "Seek not the things which are out of your control." Lucius realized that every time he compared himself to someone else, he was chasing things beyond his control. Instead of measuring his progress by his own growth, he was allowing the accomplishments of others to dictate his sense of self-worth. He decided to try a new approach. Each time he felt the pang of comparison, he would redirect his thoughts back to his own journey. Was he becoming a better person? Was he aligned with his own values? Was he progressing in areas that genuinely mattered to him? Slowly, he found that focusing on these questions brought him a sense of calm and satisfaction. Have you ever stopped to consider what achievements truly matter to you beyond what others are doing? What if? Instead of looking around, you looked within and found joy in your own journey. Over time, Lucius discovered a powerful truth. Each person's path is unique, shaped by their individual strengths, challenges, and dreams. Comparing himself to others was like measuring a tree against the stars. Both have their own beauty and purpose, but they cannot be fairly compared. By letting go of comparisons, Lucius freed himself to grow in his own way, finding pride in his unique path. This shift brought him a new kind of freedom. He no longer felt the need to keep up with others, but was instead guided by a quiet, steady sense of purpose. And so Lucius continued his journey, no longer distracted by the achievements of others, but fully committed to his own path. Are there places in your life where comparison holds you back? Could it be time to release those thoughts and focus on the life that is yours alone? 4. Uncontrolled emotional 2. Uncontrolled emotional reactions. Who truly holds the power? Reactions. Who truly holds the power? Lucius was no stranger to moments of frustration on the busy streets of his city, where traffic could turn a calm morning into a test of patience. He often found himself clenching his fists, his heartbeat racing as he resisted the urge to honk at drivers who, in his view, were endlessly inconsiderate. But over time, Lucius began to notice something. Each time he reacted in anger, he felt drained, even defeated. Could it be that he was giving away his power with each emotional outburst? In Stoicism, emotional control is seen as a pillar of inner strength. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind. Not outside events realize this, and you will find strength inspired by this idea." Lucius asked himself, was his anger solving anything, or was it merely a reaction, a quick escape from deeper discomfort? Slowly, he began to see that his uncontrolled reactions weren't a show of strength, but rather an indication that he wasn't fully in control, determined to change. Lucius experimented with a new approach when he felt the surge of frustration. Rising within him, he would pause, take a deep breath, and ask himself a simple question: what good will this reaction bring? This question acted as a mirror, forcing him to reflect on the true consequences of his anger over time. He found that by redirecting his energy, he could channel his frustration into productive tasks that aligned with his goals, or even just a few moments of calm reflection. In what areas of your life do you let emotions control your actions? How often do we find ourselves reacting impulsively only to regret it later one day, after a particularly long day at work? Lucius found himself caught in an unexpected traffic jam. In the past, this would have sparked a wave of anger, but this time he took a deep breath, allowed the tension to subside, and turned his attention to the calming music playing on his radio. The irritation faded, and a strange sense of peace took its place by choosing not to react. Lucius discovered an unexpected power. The power to remain unshaken regardless of what happened around him. Lucius's journey toward emotional control was not a quick fix, but a gradual transformation. He came to understand that true strength wasn't about holding firm to his reactions, but about letting them go with each decision, to pause rather than react. He grew in self-mastery, proving to himself that he held the reins of his own mind. Imagine the strength it would bring if, instead of being swept away by every emotion, you could choose your responses carefully, each one aligned with your values and goals. Would this be a kind of freedom you'd want to explore? 5 unnecessary goals. Are you 3? The pursuit of external approval. Are you living for others? Approval. Are you living for others? Lucius was, like many of us, accustomed to seeking others' opinions before making even the simplest of decisions. From how he dressed to the career he chose, there was a constant tug, the need for approval. If you've ever felt the pressure to be seen in a certain way or to meet someone else's expectations, you know this feeling well. One day on his way to work, Lucius found himself checking his reflection in the mirror of a cafe window. Though, was he looking for himself, or was he trying to see himself as others saw him? That's when he remembered a phrase he'd come across in his readings: other people's approval is a reflection, but it is not who you are. Inspired by the idea, he decided to try something new. What if he stopped living for others and started living for himself? In Stoicism, there's a lesson that peace comes from within, from being true to one's own values rather than conforming to the fleeting opinions of the world. Lucius realized that each time he chased approval, he was surrendering his peace, allowing his identity to be shaped by forces beyond his control. The desire for external validation was an endless, hollow pursuit, keeping him from true contentment. With quiet determination, Lucius began experimenting with small acts of independence. He stopped oversharing his decisions with those who wouldn't understand, and chose instead to make choices based on what felt right to him. At first it felt strange, like stepping into an unfamiliar silence. Would anyone notice this change? Would people start questioning him? Yet, with each silent choice, Lucius felt more in control, more confident, and most importantly, more himself. Have you ever paused to consider how much of your day is shaped by what others think? Are there decisions in your life that are truly yours, guided by your own values rather than the expectations of others? One evening, Lucius declined an invitation to an event he had never enjoyed choosing, instead to spend the evening in quiet reflection. As the hours passed, he felt a peace he hadn't known in years. This simple act of saying no to external validation opened up a new kind of freedom, one rooted in authenticity and self-respect. And so Lucius learned a valuable truth, that letting go of the need for approval isn't about rebellion or isolation. It's about living with a quiet strength, guided by a purpose that comes from within. This, he realized, was the beginning of a path to real freedom. Could this be a path for you as well? What would you let go of if you didn't have to prove yourself to anyone? 4. Gossip and negative talk. What are you planting with your words? 2. Gossip and negative talk. What are you planting with your words? Lucius wasn't a malicious person, but he, like many, occasionally indulged in small bits of gossip. It seemed harmless enough a way to connect with colleagues or friends over shared frustrations, but there was a nagging feeling, each time a slight discomfort in the back of his mind. Was he adding anything good to the world? By indulging in this talk one evening at a dinner gathering, Lucius found himself in a conversation that took a turn toward criticizing a mutual friend who wasn't present at that moment. Something shifted within him. He recalled a piece of Stoic wisdom: the words we speak are seeds we plant in others' minds and our own. He wondered what kind of seeds had he been planting. Stoicism encourages us to consider the impact of our words and to refrain from participating in conversations that spread negativity or disrespect. Lucius realized that each time he engaged in gossip, he was not only potentially harming the subject of the conversation, but also fostering a mindset of negativity within himself. Gossip, after all, isn't just about others. It subtly shapes the speaker, reinforcing a habit of judgment and criticism. The next day, Lucius tried a new approach. When a conversation at work began veering into the realm of gossip, he gently redirected it toward a more positive topic. He was surprised by how easily this small shift changed the entire atmosphere. His colleagues, who seemed ready to discuss a co-worker's flaws, instead found themselves talking about the inspiring aspects of their work. The mood lifted, and Lucius left the conversation feeling lighter, more aligned with the person he wanted to be. How often do we find ourselves slipping into gossip without even realizing it? And what would happen if instead we chose to sow words of encouragement, understanding, or even silence? Lucius began to ask himself a simple question each time he spoke. Would I want these words to be spoken about me? This reflection guided him toward conversations that were constructive, kind, and meaningful. He found that by choosing words carefully, he was not only preserving his integrity, but also setting an example for those around him. As days turned into weeks, Lucius noticed a shift. People started coming to him with positive thoughts, ideas, and discussions. He had unwittingly become a magnet for constructive conversations simply by eliminating gossip from his life. Lucius was learning that his words had a ripple effect, creating an environment of respect and empathy around him. Perhaps we too could benefit from taking a moment to reflect before we speak. What kind of environment are we creating with our words? And is it the kind of place we want to live in? 3. Comparing yourself to others. 5. Unnecessary goals. Are you holding on to what no longer serves you? Holding on to what no longer serves you. Lucius had always been a goal-oriented person. His planner was filled with to-do lists, each line a reminder of what he needed to accomplish. But as the years went by, he began to notice a troubling pattern. Some of his goals seemed outdated, things he had once pursued passionately, but which no longer brought him joy or purpose. Have you ever clung to a goal, not because it still inspired you, but simply because it was on your list? In the wisdom of Stoicism, we find guidance on knowing when to release what no longer serves us. Remember, nothing is worth so much anxiety as the mind's own inner peace, reads an old Stoic saying. Lucius realized that by stubbornly holding on to goals that had lost their meaning, he was sacrificing the very peace he sought to build. One weekend, Lucius decided to go through his list of ambitions one by one, asking himself, does this still align with who I am today? He found that several goals, ones that once sparked excitement, now felt burdensome, even irrelevant. Letting go of these goals wasn't easy. It felt like letting go of a part of himself. Yet he knew that by releasing them, he was making room for something truer, something that resonated with his present self? Are there goals in your life that feel more like obligations than passions? What if you gave yourself permission to set them down as Lucius quietly erased a few outdated ambitions? He felt a wave of relief. There was a new lightness in his mind, as though he had cleared away mental clutter in place of those old goals. He began focusing on pursuits that reflected his current values and interests. Goals, he realized, should evolve with us, not weigh us down with outdated expectations. By letting go of these unnecessary goals, Lucius opened up space to pursue things that truly mattered to him. He learned that the quiet act of elimination was in itself an act of growth, allowing him to move forward with clarity and purpose. What would happen if you were allowed yourself to review your goals and release those that no longer serve you? Could this be the start of a path aligned with your truest six, unrealistic expectations? Are you anchoring yourself to reality? Self 6, unrealistic expectations. Are you anchoring yourself to reality? Lucius had a habit, one that often went unnoticed. He set towering expectations for himself and others. He expected perfection in his work, his relationships, even his fitness goals. When life didn't meet these high standards, disappointment followed, leaving him frustrated. Have you ever found yourself stuck in the trap of expecting too much from yourself or those around you? One evening, Lucius read a piece of Stoic wisdom that spoke to him deeply. Adjust your sails to the wind rather than fighting against the current. He realized that by holding on to unrealistic expectations, he was making life harder than it needed to be. His rigid ideals weren't leading him to excellence, but were instead a source of endless frustration inspired to change. Lucius began by questioning his expectations. Were they realistic? Were they truly his own? Or had he adopted them from external pressures? He soon realized that many of his expectations were based on a false ideal, an image of life that didn't align with reality. What would your life look like if you adjusted your expectations, allowing them to reflect the real world rather than an imagined one? Could this bring a sense of ease you've been searching for over time? Lucius learned to release those unrealistic ideals. He allowed himself and others to be human, to make mistakes and grow at their own pace. Instead of viewing challenges as setbacks, he saw them as natural parts of life, things to learn from rather than obstacles to a perfect outcome. In letting go of unrealistic expectations, Lucius found peace in the present moment. His journey became one of acceptance, embracing life as it was rather than as he wished it to be. This quiet shift changed his entire perspective, freeing him to appreciate the beauty of imperfection. Could it be time to free yourself from expectations that weigh you down? What if, instead of striving for perfection, you chose to welcome each moment as it is? 7. Maintaining privacy in 7. Maintaining privacy in relationships. Who needs to know? Relationships. Who needs to know? Lucius had always been open about his life, sharing both his joys and sorrows with friends, family, and even casual acquaintances. When his relationships hit rough patches, he found himself reaching out to others, explaining his side of things in search of comfort and validation. But one day, after a difficult breakup, Lucius wondered if all this sharing was truly helping him heal, or if it was just scattering his pain in every direction. In Stoicism, there's a principle of holding our personal struggles close, treating them as sacred and private journeys. A wise person learns from every experience, the Stoics say, but does not make every experience a public matter. Lucius realized that each time he shared private details about his relationships, he was surrendering his sense of dignity, exposing his deepest emotions in ways that didn't always lead to understanding. Inspired by this thought, Lucius decided to try something different. The next time he felt the urge to share his relationship struggles, he paused. Instead of venting to a friend or co-worker, he sat quietly with his thoughts, reflecting on what had happened and what he could learn from it. Gradually, he began to see his relationships as personal journeys rather than stories to be told. How often do we feel compelled to explain our choices, our endings, or our heartaches to others? And what would happen if we held these moments close, keeping them as our own sacred learning experiences? With this newfound privacy, Lucius found that he could better process his emotions without the influence of outside opinions. His reflections became deeper, his insights clear. By keeping his relationships private, he respected both himself and the people involved, preserving the dignity of the shared experiences without reducing them to gossip or hearsay. There came a day when Lucius's friends noticed the change. When they asked about his recent breakup, expecting to hear the details, he simply smiled and said, "I'm learning from it." This response, simple but firm, was a revelation to him for the first time. He felt truly in control of his own story, able to heal quietly, and with respect for the past. Could there be wisdom in holding some stories close? What if the best healing came not from sharing, but from silent reflection, allowing your heart the privacy to mend itself? 8. Judgment of others. Who is 8? Judgment of others. Who is really being judged? Really being judged. Lucius, like many, had a tendency to form quick judgment about people when he saw someone dressed in a way he didn't approve of or heard about a decision he didn't understand. A judgment would form almost instinctively. He wasn't unkind, but he didn't realize how much energy he was giving to opinions that held no real value in his life. Then one day, Lucius encountered a quote by Marcus Aurelius: "Whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question: what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I'm about to criticize?" This thought stayed with him, lingering in his mind and reshaping how he saw others. What if, instead of judging others, he took each encounter as a chance to understand more about himself? He decided to put this idea into practice. The next time he found himself criticizing someone's choices, he paused and asked, "Why does this bother me?" In many cases, he found that his judgments were reflections of his own insecurities or beliefs. By reframing his perspective, Lucius began to see others with more empathy, realizing that their lives were as complex and unique as his own. How often do we criticize others without realizing we are reflecting our own inner struggles? And what would happen if, instead of judging, we chose to understand? As Lucius's judgments softened, he noticed a subtle shift in his interactions. People seemed more open, more willing to share their true selves with him. Sensing his acceptance and lack of criticism, by letting go of unnecessary judgments, Lucius not only freed himself from negative thoughts, but also fostered deeper, more genuine relationships. This quiet practice transformed his view of the world. Instead of seeing people through a lens of criticism, he learned to approach them with curiosity and kindness, recognizing that each person's path was their own. In the end, Lucius discovered that by refraining from judging others, he had begun to release some of the judgments he held against himself as well. Is there freedom in letting go of judgment? Could it be that by seeking to understand others, we gain a better understanding of ourselves? 9. Overuse of social media. 9. Overuse of social media. Who are you competing with? Who are you competing with? Lucius had always enjoyed social media. It was a window into the lives of friends, family, and even strangers. But over time he noticed a pattern. The more he scrolled, the more anxious he felt. People seemed to be constantly celebrating achievements, vacations, and perfect relationships with each post. He felt a quiet pressure building inside him, a feeling that his own life somehow didn't measure up. The Stoics taught that true contentment comes from within, from focusing on one's own part without being distracted by the lives of others. Lucius realized that his social media use was clouding his mind, filling it with comparisons that had little to do with his own values or goals. He asked himself, am I scrolling for inspiration, or simply to pass time, determined to regain control, Lucius decided to set boundaries. He designated specific times to check social media, only allowing himself to engage. When he was in a positive state of mind, he also limited the types of accounts he followed, focusing on those that inspired growth and aligned with his values. Slowly, he found himself freed from the trap of constant comparison, able to enjoy social media without letting it dictate his self-worth. Have you ever considered how social media affects your mindset? What would happen if you limited your time online, focusing more on your own life rather than the curated lives of others over the weeks? Lucius noticed a newfound peace. He no longer felt the urge to compare every aspect of his life to those of people online. Instead, he began to focus on his own journey, finding fulfillment in small, real-world moments rather than digital validations. In disconnecting from social media's endless comparisons, Lucius connected more deeply with his own life. By eliminating the distraction, he was able to experience a joy and contentment that were truly his own. Could it be that real life, with all its imperfections, is far more fulfilling than the polished world of social media? 10. Letting go of unrealistic 10. Letting go of unrealistic expectations. Are you open to life as it is? Expectations. Are you open to life as it is? Lucius often set high expectations for both himself and others, whether it was his job, relationships, or personal growth. He held himself to an idealized vision of perfection. But as time went on, he realized that these expectations weren't a source of motivation. They were a source of stress, setting him up for disappointment whenever life inevitably fell short. One evening he read a piece of Stoic advice: "Learn to desire what you have." This struck him deeply. Could it be that his expectations, rather than helping him grow, were blocking him from appreciating what he already had? He decided to try a new approach, one rooted in acceptance rather than control. From that day on, Lucius practiced setting realistic goals that allowed for the messiness of life. He embraced the imperfections in his journey, celebrating small achievements and understanding that setbacks were a natural part of growth. He learned to live in the moment, releasing his grip on unrealistic ideals and allowing life to unfold as it was meant to. What if you too could release expectations that cause you stress? How might your life change if you embraced each moment, flaws and all, in letting go of these unrealistic expectations? Lucius discovered a new kind of freedom. He no longer felt the need to control every outcome, instead finding joy in the journey. However unpredictable it may be, life, he realized, was not a destination to be reached, but an experience to be lived. Could this be the path to true contentment, finding peace, not in perfection, but in life as it is, as Lucius quietly eliminated these 10. Conclusion. Thank you for joining us on this journey to discover the 10 things you should quietly eliminate from your life. Embracing Stoic principles can be a powerful way to simplify and strengthen your path, letting go of what no longer serves you, and finding peace in what truly matters. By making these small but meaningful changes, you're not just clearing out distractions, you're creating space for a more fulfilling, intentional life. If you found value in today's video, please like, share, and subscribe for more content on Stoicism and personal growth. Remember, the path to a better life is often about what we choose to let go of. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.